Hello, my name is Doug Leisure, and I am recording this video to give you an overview of what you would need to do um, to receive my donation software, install it, and configure it for your church or religious organization. I've already created a video that does a demonstration of the software. If you haven't seen that yet, you really ought to watch that demonstration first and then watch this video to see how to install it in your environment. Okay, as I said, this is for the 2024 version, what I'm going to be beginning to release in 2024. So, as I said in my demonstration video, if you want a copy of it for your church, just send me an email and I will respond to you with an email that looks pretty much like this, and the software will be attached. So let's take a look at what steps you need to go through, first of all, to get it downloaded to your PC. I'm using Gmail here, and if I just double click on it, Gmail is going to try to open it and convert it to a Google Sheet. We do not want that to happen. We want to download it as it is, as an Excel file. So find the option, whatever your email system is, to download it. So let's click on that, and in this particular browser that I'm using, Edge, we do a save as, and then we'll just simply back up to the place where I created a spot for it. So let me just jump over there and show you. On my G drive, I created a folder called Divine Mercy Church Donations. You would do a similar thing on a Macintosh, create a local folder for the software. On the Mac, you probably have to go through and give permission for Microsoft Excel to access that new folder that you create. Just a subtle difference on the Mac. But let's go ahead. We're going to download it into here. So we're going to browse to that folder, Divine Mercy, and that's the file name that I sent. We'll save it that way. And while we're here, let's go ahead and grab the user guide, the documentation. There's like 75 pages of information there showing you how to install it and use it. So we'll go ahead and download that into the same folder. All right, so it's just that simple. Extract it from your email, download it into your local folder. And now let's go to that folder and take a look at it. All right, so I've been seeing this quite a bit on the PC world, that when the file comes over from the emails from email, if I right click on it, again this is PC only, and look at the properties, down at the bottom there's a little security warning. And so what this is saying is just simply, hey, I can tell that this file came from a different computer. It has some macros in there. I don't know if you trust these or not. You need to tell me. So what you want to do is just simply go down there and click on the unblock, meaning it's no longer going to stop or block the macros. And then click the apply and the OK. So you need to do that first. On a Macintosh, that's not going to happen. Don't worry about it, but this is on a PC. All right, the next thing is we want to go ahead and open, first we want to rename the file. Best to do this first. So on your Mac or on your PC, we'll just do the rename command. And I'm going to go ahead and just call this Divine Mercy Church Donations and Expenses. So we rename it first and then we open it. So double clicking on it and Microsoft Excel, and yes, it needs to be the full version of Microsoft Excel. Opens the file, and the first thing we get is this little security warning. Hey, there are macros in here. I've temporarily disabled them. Do you want to enable those macros? Yes or no? So we'll go ahead and click on the enable content. Now on the PC world, you do this once and it will remember that we want to enable the content. In the Macintosh environment, unfortunately, you have to click on enable macros every time you open the software. Just a little quirk in the Macintosh. All right, Then we get a prompt saying, hey, I see that this is the first time that you've opened this donation software. You want to enter all of your donor information, modify the parameters. That's how we configure it for your church. And then when you're done, use the menu item, adjust the tabs from the parameters. So we'll click on OK. And now it's prompting us for our donation date. Hey, we're not doing a donation right now. We're just configuring it, getting it set up. So we'll just click on the cancel here. All right. I'll take you there in just a second, but when it talked about using the donation software, there is a new menu that's been added to your Microsoft menu. The ribbon is what Microsoft calls it, called donation software. Under there are all of the menu items you need to use the software. And this is the one it was referring to, adjust the tabs from the parameters. That's after we set the parameters, we'll just run this menu option. Shouldn't take too long, but let's go ahead and go through it. It did say the first thing you should do is go to the donors tab and enter your donors. So your donor numbers, your donor names. You can optionally put in their address and their email address. And then the important thing here is just simply for that donor, when we get to the end of the year and it's time to print the receipts, do you want to print a receipt for this person, yes or no? So fill in all of your donors. Identify whether or not you want them to receive a receipt at the end of the year. And then we go to the parameters tab. Okay, so I've provided quite a few different parameters that you use to configure the software to work for your church. We're going to start with the most important ones first. So I'm going to skip over a few of these as we're touching on the important ones, and then we'll come back and go down through these in just a little bit more detail. But the first one you want to do is you want to do the church name and address. So again, we're doing the Divine Mercy Church, and whatever the address is, 100 Main Street. And then whatever the town is, let's say it's Atlanta, Georgia. And whatever the zip is. So church name, address, and then we get to an important one. Do you want to use the software in English or in a different language? Now I will ship it with Spanish, but if you need a different language, just contact me. I have all of the things set up here for Portuguese, Burmese, Japanese, and over the course of this year, I expect to get a lot more languages set up. But just let me know. We can configure it for a different language, but it will ship with Spanish already in it. Let me drop back to English for a second. Also, if you're in a foreign country, what date format do you want to use? Month, day, year is the default here. That's what we do in the United States typically. But if you're in a foreign country, you probably want the more familiar year, month, day. And you notice how when I'm setting the parameters that most of these use this little drop-down concept so that you can choose your menu options from a drop-down list. All right. And the other one here is, and when it's time to print, do you want me to open up the printer dialog box? Especially in the Macintosh, having the dialog box open gives you so many more parameters and options to configure how you want to print, and ways to even modify the printout as part of the dialog box. A lot of options on the Mac for that. All right, let's skip down through a lot of these other ones because where it gets to be pretty important is when you get down here. When it's time to print a receipt at the end of the year, what do you want to do for the footer on the receipt, the bottom part of it? And so there's some standard text in here already related to donations that were received. The church is tax exempt, but of course it has the wrong church name because this is just a sample. So we'll put in Divine Mercy Church. and the treasurer, so the name of the treasurer or the assistant treasurer. Again, these are things you would configure for your church specifically. And for the reports that we pass out monthly, like we do that to our governing board, what do you want to do on the footer there? So submitted by, whatever that your name is, you would want to enter that in here as well. Let's skip down a little bit. Here's a really important thing. What categories do you use, or some churches call those funds? What are the donation categories, donation funds that you use? Go ahead and set those names. So maybe it's like a general fund, or general offering. Maybe you have missions. Maybe you have benevolence. Okay, whatever they are, type those in here. You have up to 20 different categories, right? And then set the number here to identify how many of those 20 do you want to be displayed, and therefore use week after week. And those will come over right into the place where we enter our donations. They'll move from, as you fill them in, they'll move over here. But the number that you're using will unhide more columns if you're doing more than 3 categories. So, all right, so that's a pretty important thing to fill in, the names of your donation categories and how many you want to use. Oh, sorry, note on here, do not enter special offerings as one of your categories, because that is always going to be on the entry tab ready for you to use. So it's your 20 plus the specials. The specials will always be there. All right. Again, if you're if you're outside of the United States, you'll want to adjust this currency. This is where you fill in the name of your different coins and your paper bills and their valuation. This is what we use later on then to help count all the pile of cash and coins that you have after you've completed a donation. We basically use this to kind of recount everything and validate that it matches what you've entered in the entry tab. So a cross check and balance to make sure everything matches. So those are the most important things. I'm going to go and show you one other thing real quick, and I did bury this way at the bottom on purpose. When I send you the Excel file, it is initially going to be set up and defined to do the weekly donations and track your expenses. I say expenses, but it's really tracking your income and your expenses and creating a income versus expense type of report. Down here at the bottom, you'll find it somewhere around row 220 to 219. There's a menu item there to say, yes, I want to use both donations and expenses, or you can select it to do the donations only. I know a lot of churches, in fact, our church is set up this way. The group that receives and counts the donations and makes the receipts for the end of the year, they use this software to do that. But our treasurer, he uses a totally different system. He uses QuickBooks. And so there's 2 separate systems. And that would be, if you're in that same environment, then you would want to say donations only, and then the expense and income reporting side of it, that will all disappear and be hidden from you so that you can track the donations only. All right, once you make those parameter choices, then you will come up here to the donation software, and this menu item that says adjust the tabs from your parameters, meaning it'll read what we've set up in the parameters and adjust all of the different tabs accordingly, hiding and unhiding different rows and columns as it needs to. And then it leaves you back here in the entry tab, where you are at this point ready to put it away until your first donation. So make sure you save what you've created so far, and then you can close it down and wait till you get your first donation. So those are the steps for getting the email with my Excel file and user guide attached, making a local folder to put it in, downloading it out of the email, opening up, renaming it, then opening up and configuring it for your church. All right, I'm going to go ahead and take a moment to go back to the parameters and just kind of go down through some of those just so you kind of have an understanding. What I'm talking about here is fully spelled out in the user guide as well. Okay, so let's go back to the parameters for a second. So first thing is there's a year here, and this is really intended to be the reporting year. As you are doing your donations, we have a tab here, this annual tab. It's going to end up being multiple years of donations here. This will be all of the history will be located here. And from that history, we build our receipts or our reports, and it uses this parameter to just simply say, of all of the many years of data, which year am I trying to pull to create the report or the receipts, right? So this doesn't stop you from entering donations on other dates in other years. It just tells the software which data to pull as it's building the receipts and the reports. So it's a reporting year. All right, I mentioned about how the software will be sent to you with Spanish in it already. So you can select either English or Spanish. Really important, if you select a different language, is that you need to now go back to the other parameters. So here's a good one here. Do I want to bring up the dialog box? Yes or no? Well, it's because it was sent to you in English, you'll need to use the drop down and choose, in this case then, yes or no, but in Spanish. So remember to go through all of your different parameters and adjust them then to the language that you choose. All right, another thing regarding the language is not only can you choose a different language, but you can also say that you want to display both languages. Okay, so if you happen to be in an environment where you have a need for the dual language, some of your people that help you speak English, some speak Spanish, well, go ahead and set it up for both languages. And so what it's going to do is going to display all of the information in, first of all, English, then a slash, and then Spanish. Okay. That'll follow through pretty much on all of the different parts of the software. If you're doing the dual language, well, you're going to have to come back probably to all of these different columns and make them wider. And to do that, you just simply go to the review, unprotect the sheet. It's protected so you don't accidentally make changes to it. And then you can make the columns wider, or in this case, I think, yeah, in this case we can get away with just making the row bigger for this particular item because it's using word wrap formatting option in Excel. But in some cases you'll have to make the columns wider. Well, here's a good case right here. Benevolence doesn't fit, so you would make that wider. All right, and then when you're done, go ahead and just protect the sheet again. And these things that I'm saying again are found in the user guide. All right, back to the parameters. So if you do use a dual language, then when you get down here to the categories, you will want to go ahead and set those up. Oh, and I don't know. Sorry, don't know what it's actually called in Spanish, but you would want to go ahead and put those in the dual language as well. All right. And just as I said before, then adjust your parameters to correctly display the parameter options in the language or the dual language that you've selected. All right, and you probably want to set this over to the month, sorry, the year, month, day format if you're doing a language if you're outside of the United States. Okay, what else? So I'm going to go ahead and just switch this back to English as we go through this. Set it back to month, day, year, and then just the standard answer in English. All right. The parameters are laid out after these first few are laid out according to the different types of things you'll be doing. So related to entering donations, how many detail copies do you want to print? The details are really just simply what we enter up here at the top. So the donor information, so the name and number, the cash amount, how much was donated to each of the different categories. All of these details are printed. Do you want one copy or two copies? If you need to pass it out to more than one person, then you might want to set that to two and have two copies of these details. It also asks how many copies of the summary do you want. The summary is this information at the bottom. How many coins and dollar bills did we get? What are the amounts of all of the checks? And basically all the stuff I'm referring to here. This becomes your bank deposit information. So that's printed out as part of the summary, as well as these totals at the bottom. In total, how much came into my first category, my second category, my third category, or to the specials. All right, so this is the summary information that's printed out. Going down a little bit further. Okay, next question. When you're printing those details, do you want to hide the names? Just in case somebody needs to be extra cautious, we'll print the donor number but not the name associated with it, just to try to provide some anonymity and security. And then here's a question about how many summary copies. All right, you notice there's about 20 rows here that you can use to fill in each week when you do a donation. The parameter option right here defines how many rows you want every week as your default, your starting point. So if you need 30 every week, we'll just set that to 30. All right, and you'll notice the parameter description here is actually highlighted in pink, and that's because after the first time when you run this option the first time, you may come back and change some of these parameters. If you change one of the pink ones, you need to adjust the tabs again because you've made a change to a particular portion of the parameters that requires the software to go through and modify all of the different tabs. So if you change any of these ones, then just run the adjust the tabs from parameters. So let's do that. We just set the default to 30, and then down below where you enter the check amounts, maybe 5 rows isn't enough, so we'll set that to 6. These two options say, and if I happen to run out again, there's a menu item here to insert additional rows or additional check rows so that I have extra room if I start to run out. But these two will set the default. So we modified those. They're in pink, so we're going to go ahead and just run this menu item here to adjust it, and you'll see that now I have 30 blank rows, and that'll be my starting point each week. Okay, down a little bit further. After you've completed your donation, it'll offer to print it for you. But the other question here is, do I want to save a separate copy of that donation detail in the summary as a separate Excel file? So that's purely up to you whether you want to keep it, yes or no. If you do want to keep a copy of it, this is the name it's going to give it. The file name is going to start with weekly giving record, and you can adjust this, and then a dash and the date and a time. So that'll be the file name, and then optionally you can tell it what local folder you might want to put it in. Especially important if you're going to try to put the master file here up in the cloud, like the Microsoft OneDrive or the iCloud. If you do that, you'll probably want to set a local folder for these little copies that these Excel files that it's making. All right, let's take a quick look at the receipts. The next thing would be the receipts. By default, they're going to be set up to display a monthly total for each of your categories. But you can also tell it you want to show 52 weeks of information or even more details. Again, all this stuff is spelled out in the user guide. On the receipts, let me jump over there for a second. So what a lot of people, a lot of churches have done is that they've gotten a copy of their church logo and they've moved it right up here in the upper left hand corner, size it accordingly, of course, to fit inside of this little box. And for a lot of people, their church logo is in color. So they, if they have a color printer, would like to print the receipts, including the logo, then in color. And so we've given you an option for that. Of course, the way it's written is kind of backwards. Do you want to print in black and white? Yes or no. So if I say no here, then it will attempt to print in color if I have a color printer. The other question related to the receipts, do you want to print them in portrait or landscape? And for the donations, if a particular person has not given more than a penny, it won't print. Okay, so if they haven't given anything, it won't print. But some churches like to set this at $100 or $200 or $250, and therefore not do receipts for anything lower than that. Purely up to you how you want to do that. All right, and then if you're printing the receipts weekly, hey, there's a whole lot of information that goes on that printout. Actually 53 weeks, potential weeks of data, and that gets kind of lengthy, and by default it's going to want to force the entire printout to squeeze it down to fit on one page. And especially if you have a really lengthy report, you probably don't want it to be squished that much, so you really ought to set that to 2 pages. And that means in the Excel world, it's 1 page wide by 2 pages long, and that's what we're defining here, so that it'll stop Microsoft Excel from shrinking the text too far. So you have control over that. All right, and on those receipts you can set up some optional headers. We talked about the footers before, but you have up to 5 different lines of footers, so you can get the information on there that you need for your footers. Step down to the next one, which are the reports. Again, we print these reports once a month and give them to our governing board, and it's just information that helps them to see in total how much came in, how much was donated into the different categories, along with the year-to-date information. So it's a pretty nice and helpful report. And again, when you print it, do you want to print it in the monthly totals or the weekly totals? Do you want to print it in color, or do you want to print it in black and white? Your choice, portrait or landscape, the number of copies that you want. So maybe if you need to make 3 copies each time, you just set this to 3, and it'll go ahead and print all 3 copies whenever you say it's time to print the reports. And the number of report pages. Again, if especially if you're doing the weekly reports, you probably want to set that to 2. If you so just you have control over those things, and then a footer for your monthly report. Donor list. So as you're creating your list of donors, again, this thing could become long, and so trying to squeeze it all down to just a single page might make it so small that you can't read it. So go ahead and play with the number of pages to print, so that it'll cause it to come out on 2 pages or 3 pages long or 4 pages long, and that allows you to have text that is larger and therefore much easier to read. All right, the final thing down here is related to the part where we track the expenses. So if in the parameter way down below you set that to donations only, then these rows are going to be hidden. You won't see them. All right, but if you leave it as donations and expenses, then we have these options, these parameters to control that. How many, when you print the income expense report, how many pages do you want to, how many copies do you want to print? And so that'll allow you to identify the number of copies. The expenses, are they using categories or categories and subcategories? Let me just give you a real quick example of that. So our church has an electric bill. Our church has a gas bill for the heating. It has a water bill for the or water and sewage, right? So those are three simple bills. And the if we're doing categories only, then we would name our electric would be one thing, our gas would be another, our water sewage bill would be another category. But we give the option to also have categories and subcategories so that you can say building maintenance is my category, and within that I have a subcategory of electric. Within that I have a subcategory of gas. Within that I have a subcategory of water and sewage. So that just helps collect everything, so it'll total at the category level, and then also show you the detail subcategory amounts. So you just need to define whether you're doing categories only or categories and subcategories. Then the other question here is, as I'm doing my weekly donations, would you like the software to automatically copy your donation information over and plug it into the expense tracking part of it, so that you don't have to insert your donation information, your income? It's already there. So, and then the other thing is some ways that you can kind of control the wording that it uses. So if it's automatically moving it over, what do you want to call that as it moves it over? So the category will be the first part of it is it's going to identify it as a deposit, and then the next part of it is going to be the category it's going to use will be the word donations. Underneath of that, in the subcategory, those will be the things that you set up for the donation categories. So you have, again, control over these words. And on the report that it builds, do you want to see that listed as monthly totals or weekly totals? And this is just me, from my experience. I really think the monthly is really the much more elegant way, simple way to display the information. I'm not sure how many people are using the weekly. I think the monthly is a little more appropriate. But those are the things that you would want to define related to the expenses. And everything else we've already talked about previously. So that's everything I wanted to cover. Again, check out the user guide. A lot of information in there to help you out. If you need some information or help, I do give you my contact information here, again, under the donation software contact information, or you'll find it down here at the bottom of the parameters. So let me know if you have any questions or problems. Thank you.